The Holy Gospel, according to Matthew chapter 21, verses 33 to 46. Glory to you, O Lord. Listen to another parable. There was a landowner who planted a vineyard. He put a fence around it, dug a wine press in it, and built a tower. Then he rented it to tenant farmers and took a trip. When it was a time for a harvest, he sent his servants to the tenant farmers to collect his fruit. But the tenant farmers grabbed his servants. They beat some of them, and some of them they killed. Some of them they stoned to death. Again, he sent other servants, more than the first group. They treated them in the same way. Finally, he sent his son to them. They will respect my son, he said. But when the tenants' farmers saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come on, let's kill him, and we'll have his inheritance." They grabbed him, threw him out of the vineyard, and killed him. When the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenant farmers? They said, "He will totally destroy those wicked farmers and rent the vineyard to other tenants farmers who will give him the fruit when it's ready." Jesus said to them, "Haven't you ever read in the scriptures? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and it's amazing in our eyes. Therefore, I tell you that God's kingdom will be taken away from you and will be given to a people who produce its fruits. Whoever falls on this stone will be crushed, and the stone will crush the person it falls on." Now when the chief priests and the Pharisees heard this parable, they knew Jesus was talking about them. They were trying to arrest him, but they feared the crowds who thought he was a prophet. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. totally exhausting. Did you feel that intensity? Take a deep breath now. Let me greet you with greetings of well-being and peace, of courage and strength in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Let me talk to you about the stones collector. Use your imagination a lot and bear with me as I tell you another story. What is it that this Black queer women from Vieques, Puerto Rico, out of all of the places, has to do with stones? What is it that Vima knows about rocks? And probably I don't know a lot about rocks. I love them. But let me tell you a little story, and I will ask you to remember when you were a little child and your mom or your dad or your grandma, grandpa, or sister used to tell you stories. So they dance and dance rapidly, moving under the shining light of the full moon. Then they gather exhausted when the first rays of the sun just began to appear. The fairy godmother concluded by explaining that the stones they danced upon would be transformed into powerful stones, carrying special powers with their special marks. Whoever found one of these stones, their wishes will be granted, their prayers will be answered. I started collecting wishing rocks or prayer rocks because I was just curious about the quartz circles found in them, until I read about these legends and I heard stories from indigenous people going and up to the mountains and having trips, drinking ayahuasca, narrating similar stories that they were experiencing. And I seriously started collecting these wishing rocks or prayer stones. Stones, I like to collect them. But let me tell you something, apparently the Bible is a huge collection of stones. Just for the records, the word stone or stones appear in the Bible 367 times. There are 128 instances of the word rock, and stumbling rock appears 48 times. So if you want to have more example of God and the Bible as being stones or rock collectors, God is named as the Rock of Ages. The Lord, Jesus, we call it the rock of our salvation. Jesus himself intervened with stones and talks about stones and rocks more than anyone in the Bible. So it seems to me that God is a stone collector. Rocks, boulders, rocks, stones, pebbles, gravels, size matters. Rocks, pebbles, stones, gravel, igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic types. These are the three types of rocks. Process matters. Three things are certain or can be said about stones. First of all, there are no two of them that are the same. Number two, stones are used in myriads of ways. And number three, you need one stone to destroy another one. Some of you know that I work with stones and with sea glass. One thing I know is how to clearly differentiate a pirate piece of sea glass, which has been torn by the ocean and the oxygen and the currents for over 250 years, and a rock. However, at the time of drilling either the rock or the pipette sea glass, I need to use a specific type of drilling bit. Guess what? It's a diamond drill bit. Yes, you heard it. I need to use a diamond drill bit to be able to drill through another stone or rock. So I love rocks and I collect stones, and I am a stone. I have news for you. You have stones. Even if you have never considered yourself to be a stone collector, you are a stone and you collect them. We all have stones. We carry with us the learning lessons of our ancestors, mis ancestras. We carry with us our histories, our experiences, and when we need something to hold on to in this life, those serve to us as rocks. In our first reading for today, we hear the voice of Peter. Do you remember Peter? I think that Peter has some issues with his name. I mean, Peter means piedra. It makes more sense to me in Spanish because it sounds similar. Peter doesn't sound as similar to piedra as to stone or rock. But that was Peter's name. Who wants to be called like that? Like you are something that is hard to break. You are not necessarily of an appearance that might be attractive to everybody. You are used for building things, or you are used to kill people. Nobody would like to be called a stone. So Jesus breaks it down for Peter, and after Peter's confession, Jesus rectifies a little bit of Peter's and his identity. According to Matthew chapter 6, 17 through 18, Jesus replied to Peter, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against this. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loose in heaven." So I imagine Peter saying, well, since I need to carry my name, the piedra of Peter, I think I am going to share a little bit of this load. And now you are all also stones. Stones. We all have power. We all are solid rocks. We can all be a part of something that is in the process of being constructed. So it seems to me really interesting that when talking about stones, people can choose to do what they want to do with them. For this part, I will advise to have some discretion because I am going to show some graphic images. One of the worst ways that rocks can be used is against another people. Sadly, tragically, stones have been used to inflict damage into bodies for such a long time. Seems totally ridiculous, irrational, terrible, horrible to me that those countries that call themselves the most Christian and most conservative, they use their values to perpetuate violence against bodies that are different. So now I'm going to share two images of some of the most tragic things that I still try to understand how or why is it that these things continue happening in the world. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Kelsey, can you see my screen?
We can't see it yet. I think you might have to click share one more time in the.
There we go.
There we go.
So this is a picture of a transgender woman stoned to death in Brazil. But she's not the only one. Here is the case of a transgender woman, another transgender woman recently, really recently, being stoned to death in Mexico. Why? Why using stones? Why killing other bodies, other people, just because they are different? If you attended the worship last week when I had the conversation with River, we stop and talk about the killing, the carnage there is around the world, around trans bodies. And I want to include now in the list, and if you know something about me preaching, I'd like you to take some part in this sermon. I think these people, these humans, these persons were rocks. They were stumbling rocks. They were challenging systems of injustice. They were challenging systems of transphobia, homophobia, and they found themselves being destroyed by the boulders of systemic oppression, transphobia, and homophobia. And I would like you right now to go into the chat room and write the names of people that you know that have recently been killed by the systemic sins of homophobia, transphobia, racism, xenophobia, Breonna Taylor, George, Trayvon. Name them. They were stones. They are still stones, even stronger than what they were. They were just challenging systems of oppressions. And remember, the only thing that can destroy a stone is a stone. It struck me day by day to understand that there are systems that have been put in place, even inside of our denominations, our institutions, our churches. And repeating the story that Jesus narrated, they have deliberately created systems to reject some of us from growing, from being inside of them, to be able to transform systems from within. When I was talking with Pastor Eric recently, I was shocked by realizing that some changes and some progress have been done even inside of the ELCA to be more inclusive of LGBTQI plus people. In Spanish, we say LGBT. But there are so much more to be done. So when you look at candidacy process and when you look at the places where our students, LGBTQI people from LSTC need to do their practice and the MIC, and then they need to move into their ordination process, you find them facing huge, humongous stones, rocks, to be able to progress. However, I am not going to end up this sermon with a sad and tragic note. Because as I told you, you are a stone, and I am a stone. and we have been called by God to build a new thing. Now hear me saying, with the legacy and with the authority of my ancestors, the professors and scholars that have formed me, that this time, though sometimes it feels like we are like Sisyphus at the beginning, feeling exhausted, and like every day we need to pull up that boulder and start all over and all over and all over again, fighting against injustices, fighting against oppression every single day, and it is exhausting. That is not the end of the story. You are a stone, I am a stone, and we have been called to build a new world. Let me tell you good news. I can't wait for the day of that upcoming revival to happen. When I long to see big leaders of our churches, when I dream about seeing denominations humbling themselves and asking for forgiveness, for silencing the bodies of women and LGBTQI people, for destroying and excluding and purposely rejecting us from the spaces of power. I can't wait for that big revival where people of color are going to be at the center of all of the powerful institutions and churches' denominations. The day is coming, church, even though we feel exhausted, even though sometimes it takes all that we have to even put a step outside of our doors or stay inside and work and do the best that we can. You are a stone, I am a stone, and we have been called to build a new thing. God bless you. Amen.